Let's stick with earnings. Shares of Mattel taking a hit as retailers delay orders over tariff uncertainty. Bloomberg's Enda Curran joins us now for more. Enda, we're starting to see it. Might not be a big stock market issue, but a company turning around and saying some retailers are holding back, waiting for clarity. How much of an economic issue might that be?
Well, it's a big question, a big missing piece of the jigsaw. When will these tariffs start to flow through to more broadly goods on the shelf, Jonathan? And, this warning from Mattel, on the one hand, that tariffs are impacting its delivery of its goods, reflects what a lot of companies tell us all the time, that they've managed this process up to now. Either they have absorbed the tariffs or they've asked their suppliers to absorb the tariffs. But at some point, that part of the equation will have to give and they will pass those costs on to the consumer. That's the big question over the coming months. Now, to be clear, we haven't yet seen broad-based inflation from tariffs. And even Mattel made the point that consumer demand remains resilient. We saw lots of other consumer brands doing well also in this earnings season, Coca-Cola and GM and the like. So clearly there's strength out there, but this question mark about when the tariffs will eventually hit home remains an open one, I think, for economists.
And it's an open question as to whether the Fed will respond to it or should respond to it. And based on what we've heard from Chairman Powell, he's setting up this whole market just to ignore it. It's kind of bizarre that we've got no data right now, Enda. And even the data we do have, the market's prepared to ignore inflation, CPI on Friday. The amount of notes that I've read that have basically said it doesn't matter what that inflation number looks like on Friday, this Fed cuts a week today. And do you and the team see it the same way?
We are in a bizarre space, Jonathan. That's the only way to describe it. Look, if you were to just go face value with the data that we had up to the lockdown and maybe some of those private indicators up to now, you could say it suggests the labour market remains soft, but the inflation story hasn't gone away. The Fed will carry on with their cut in October. That's been all of their public utterances. But really after that, it becomes a much more complicated story, Jonathan, to your point. What happens if we get the data back on tap and it does suggest that the labour market maybe is so-so, if not softening, but inflation remains persistent? We know there are plenty of officials on the Fed board who have concerns about inflation. So, that cut next week in this month of October seems luck. But in the months ahead, it's probably going to be a much more complicated story.